less than 1% of the population are psychopaths.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, right? But this tiny fraction are responsible for a disproportionate amount of violence and crime.
Yeah, that's...
So today we're diving deep into the world of psychopaths and serial killers.
Oh, boy.
You sent over some excerpts from a podcast called The Serial Files.
Right?
And it seems like you're particularly interested in the psychology behind these criminal masterminds.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
So what makes someone capable of such horrific acts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a question that has fascinated criminologists and psychologists for centuries.
Yeah.
And while there are no easy answers, exploring the intricacies of psychopathy might give us some clues.
The podcast hosts were careful to point out that it's not as simple as labeling someone a bad person.
Right, exactly. Psychopathy is a distinct personality disorder with a very specific set of characteristics. And what's intriguing is the paradoxical nature of this disorder.
Okay.
Psychopaths can be incredibly charming and charismatic,
Oh.
often presenting a facade of normalcy, but beneath the surface lies a profound lack of empathy and remorse.
So it's not just about being evil, it's about a fundamental disconnect from human emotions.
Precisely. Let's look at the characteristics.
Okay.
Psychopaths often exhibit superficial charm, a grandiose sense of self-worth, a lack of long-term goals, and an inability to form genuine emotional connections.
That's pretty chilling. The podcast also mentioned Ted Bundy. He seemed to fit that description perfectly.
Right.
He was known for his charm and charisma,
Oh, yeah.
yet he was capable of unspeakable brutality.
Bundy is a classic case study in psychopathy. His manipulative tactics were chillingly effective. He often feigned injury or vulnerability to lure his victims,
Oh, wow.
exploiting their empathy to his advantage.
So the manipulation isn't just a byproduct of the disorder, it's a key feature.
Exactly. And it goes back to the lack of empathy.
Yep.
They simply don't see others as experiencing beings like themselves. Instead, they see them as objects to be used for their own gratification.
Wow.
This is a crucial element in understanding how someone could commit such heinous acts without any remorse.
It's like their conscience is simply switched off.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
There's a detachment from the emotional consequences of their actions.
Okay.
Think of Jeffrey Dahmer. The podcast mentioned his desire for power and control.
Right.
This wasn't just about killing.
Yeah.
It was about dominating and possessing his victims even after death.
Oh, my God.
His attempts to preserve body parts and create what he called zombies speak to a truly disturbing level of emotional detachment.
It's hard to wrap your head around that level of depravity. And the fact that they can often blend into society so seamlessly makes it even more terrifying.
That's what makes them so dangerous.
Sure.
The Serial Files podcast emphasized this point. These individuals can hold jobs, maintain relationships, and outwardly appear perfectly normal.
Wow.
They wear a mask of sanity, concealing their true nature.
Right.
This allows them to operate under the radar, making them incredibly difficult to detect. The methodical, calculated nature of many serial killers further underscores this point. They plan their crimes meticulously, often evading capture for extended periods.
So it's a combination of the manipulation, the lack of empathy, and this almost chillingly organized approach that allows them to commit these acts and get away with them for so long.
Exactly. It's a terrifying cocktail of traits that make these individuals a serious threat.
Yeah.
But where do these traits come from? Is someone simply born a psychopath? The research points to a complex interplay of both nature and nurture.
So it's not as simple as saying it's all in their genes.
Not at all. While there's some evidence to suggest that psychopaths might have structural differences in their brains,
Okay.
particularly in areas related to emotion and impulse control, the environment also plays a crucial role.
So early childhood experiences can shape these tendencies.
Absolutely. Think back to Ted Bundy. The podcast highlighted his troubled upbringing, particularly feelings of abandonment. While we can't definitively say that this caused his psychopathy, it likely contributed to his distorted worldview and his inability to form genuine emotional bonds.
It's a stark reminder that childhood experiences can have a profound impact on who we become.
The podcast referenced a study from the Journal of Abnormal Psychology that found a strong correlation between childhood trauma neglect and the development of psychopathic traits. Exposure to violence, abuse, or even inconsistent parenting can significantly impact a child's developing brain,
Wow.
potentially increasing the risk of these traits emerging.
So it's a combination of a potential predisposition coupled with a damaging environment that can create this perfect storm.
Precisely. And this brings us to an important question. If we understand the roots of psychopathy, Can we then intervene early enough to prevent these tragedies from happening in the first place?
That's a question I've been thinking about a lot. If we know that certain experiences can increase the risk of psychopathy, is early intervention even possible?
Well, it's an area of ongoing research, and it's definitely tricky. Identifying potential psychopathic traits in children is a delicate process.
Yeah.
We have to remember that not every child who exhibits impulsive behavior or struggles with empathy will become a psychopath.
So it's about understanding the nuances and not just jumping to conclusions, right?
Exactly. It's not about labeling children, but rather about recognizing potential risk factors and then providing appropriate support.
So what kind of support would that look like?
Well, think of it as creating an environment where empathy and emotional intelligence can flourish.
Okay.
This could involve things like parent training programs
Yeah.
that focus on positive reinforcement,
Yeah.
teaching children emotional regulation techniques,
Mhm.
or providing therapy for children who have experienced trauma.
So it's a multifaceted approach,
Right.
targeting both the individual child and their environment.
Precisely. Early intervention is about fostering positive development, not simply trying to fix a child.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the societal impact of these crimes.
Okay.
The Serial Files podcast really emphasized the ripple effect of fear and trauma that spreads through communities.
And that's a crucial aspect of this discussion. The impact goes far beyond the immediate victims.
Right.
The families of those affected carry a huge burden of grief and loss.
Of course.
And entire communities can be left reeling, struggling to cope with the fear and vulnerability that these crimes expose.
It's like a violation of our sense of safety and security.
Exactly. And these wounds can run deep, impacting people's mental health, their relationships, and their overall sense of trust.
It makes you wonder how society can heal from that kind of trauma. How do we move forward after something so horrific?
That's a question without easy answers, but I think a crucial first step is acknowledgement.
Okay.
We need to acknowledge the pain, the fear, the anger that these crimes generate.
So validating those feelings and not trying to sweep them under the rug.
Absolutely.
I see.
And then providing support for those affected. This could involve counseling services, support groups, or community outreach programs.
Right.
It's about creating a space where people can process their trauma and begin to heal.
It sounds like rebuilding trust is a key element in that process.
Yeah.
Trust in each other, trust in our communities, trust in the systems that are supposed to protect us.
You've hit the nail on the head. Rebuilding trust takes time, patience, and a collective effort.
Yeah.
It's about fostering open communication, addressing concerns, and demonstrating a genuine commitment to safety and well-being.
So it's not just about catching the perpetrators, it's
No.
about addressing the systemic issues
Yeah.
that might have allowed these crimes to happen in the first place.
Precisely, and that's where prevention comes in. If we can understand the factors that contribute to psychopathy, we can potentially develop more effective strategies to prevent these tragedies from occurring in the first place.
So we're talking about a two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
Addressing the immediate aftermath of these crimes while simultaneously working to prevent future occurrences.
Exactly. It's about healing the wounds of the past while building a safer and more resilient future.
And that brings us back to the psychology of these individuals. The more we understand about what makes them tick, the better equipped we are to intervene, prevent, and protect.
The Serial Files podcast made an interesting point about this. While it's easy to simply vilify these killers,
Right.
understanding their psychology is crucial if we want to prevent future tragedies.
So knowledge is power, even when it comes to something as dark as this.
Absolutely. By studying their motivations, their behaviors, their thought patterns, we gain valuable insights that can inform everything from law enforcement techniques to early intervention strategies.
It's almost like we're trying to solve a complex puzzle. Each piece of information, no matter how disturbing, brings us closer to understanding the bigger picture.
And with each piece, we get a clearer view of the path forward.
Yeah.
The path towards prevention, towards healing, towards a future where these horrific acts become less frequent, less devastating, and ultimately a tragic relic of the past.
This deep dive has been a fascinating journey into the dark side of human nature.
It has been pretty intense.
But it's also highlighted the incredible resilience of the human spirit and our unwavering pursuit of understanding, even in the face of unimaginable horror. It's been heavy,
Yeah,
but incredibly insightful.
for sure.
What really stands out to me is the sheer complexity of this issue.
Right.
It's not, just good versus evil.
No, not at all. It's way more nuanced than that.
So the podcast touched upon a question that I've been kind of grappling with.
Okay.
If someone is predisposed to these traits,
Yeah.
the lack of empathy, the inability to connect,
Right.
are they really responsible for their actions?
That's a question that's plagued philosophers and legal scholars for centuries
I bet.
because it delves into the nature of free will and accountability.
Yeah.
If someone's brain is wired differently, can we hold them to the same standards as everyone else?
It's a really tough question to wrestle with.
It is.
And it has huge implications for our legal system and how we approach punishment.
Absolutely. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the limits of human agency. Like,
Yeah.
are we just products of our biology?
Right.
Or do we have the capacity to transcend our predispositions?
This deep dive has definitely left me with more questions than answers.
I think that's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
It's not about finding those easy answers.
Right.
It's about engaging with the complexity, acknowledging the different perspectives, and having those difficult conversations.
Well, I really appreciate you guiding me through this intricate landscape.
Of course,
It's
anytime.
been fascinating,
Yeah,
albeit a little unsettling at times.
I understand. But that's the power of knowledge.
I guess so.
It can challenge our assumptions, push us outside of our comfort zones, and ultimately lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
Speaking of unsettling,
Oh, yeah.
the Serial Files podcast ended on a rather chilling note.
Oh, no. What was it?
They talked about how psychopaths can often be masters of deception.
Oh, gosh.
They can fool even the most experienced investigators.
That's one of the scariest things about this disorder.
Right.
Their ability to blend in, to manipulate, to present a facade of normalcy
Totally.
makes them incredibly difficult to detect.
So it raises the question, are there people in our lives right now, people we trust, who might be harboring these dark tendencies?
That is a truly terrifying thought.
It makes you question everything and everyone.
It does, but it's also a call to action.
What do you mean?
We need to be aware of the signs,
Okay.
educate ourselves about the nature of psychopathy, and be vigilant in protecting ourselves and our communities.
So while understanding the psychology of psychopaths is crucial,
Yes.
it's not just about academic curiosity.
Right.
It's about empowering ourselves to recognize potential threats and taking appropriate measures.
Precisely. Knowledge is power. But it's also a responsibility. It's about using that knowledge to create a safer world for ourselves and for future generations.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
It's been an intense deep dive,
Yeah.
but an incredibly valuable one.
I always find it rewarding to explore these complex topics.
Me too.
It's a reminder that the human mind is capable of both great good and great evil.
Absolutely. And it underscores the importance of empathy, compassion, and understanding in navigating the complexities of human nature.
Couldn't have said it better myself. On that note, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
As we delve into the darkness, it's important to remember that there's also light.
Oh, I like that.
There are people working tirelessly to understand and prevent these tragedies, people dedicated to helping the victims and their families, people striving to create a more just and compassionate world.
That's a message of hope to hold on to. So to our listener, thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths of the human psyche.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this deep dive has left you with new insights, perhaps some lingering questions, and a renewed sense of curiosity about the world around you. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.